Hi, and welcome to my speed build. Today I'll be renovating the Goth family home in a modern style. And I was inspired by all the modern furniture and decor in the new Life and Death expansion pack, so that's where I got the idea for this build. There were other packs and kits that I used as well. I actually used a lot of packs and kits, but probably the next two that I used the most would be the Modern Luxe kit and the Love Struck kit as well. And the front of the house still somewhat resembles the original house with the bay windows in front and the third floor tower bedroom. And I kept the black and red color theme throughout the entire house except for the two children's bedrooms. So at this point in the build, I'm adding lots of modern windows, and there's going to be a lot of the changes to those. The ones in the bay window were the hardest to decide on. I cut that whole thing out because I was trying to find very simple windows, but that they also alluded to being Victorian. And so I liked these had a little bit of an arch and a little bit of a trim, so I went with those. And then now I'm adding the sort of the rooftop to the tower that's going to end up being two bathrooms, and you can see that there are some privacy windows in those two bathrooms. And then I'm also kind of cutting out spaces for where I want the balconies to be versus a window that sticks out, and changing up the doors and trying to decide what doors I want. And do I want these big square windows everywhere, or do I just want them in the front of the house? And then I finally make that decision just to go with the long rectangular windows instead, to kind of allow the big windows in the front to be more of a feature. And so I go back throughout, and I think even that top square there gets removed too, and just go through and do all of the rectangular windows. And there was quite a few balconies in here. I'm not sure how usable some of them are, because some of them are just one tile long and they're more just to make the outside look more interesting rather than be usable. But this back balcony here is off of the primary, and that is meant to be usable, and I do put an easel on there later on in the build. And then there's another larger balcony in the front that goes off of Cassandra's bedroom, and that one also has a lot more space where you could put an activity or a chair or something there. I believe I left it blank. And now I'm just testing the outdoor lighting, trying to look for something that's modern, but not too bright because I still want the house to be gloomy. And the idea that I had for this house was that it was a modern home modeled by or inspired by a Victorian home. So it has sort of simplified elements of a Victorian, such as bay windows and turrets and towers, and balconies, but that they are very modern. They're angular and plain and simple. And so it's just supposed to be a nod to that. And now in the build, I'm laying down my flooring, and when I do flooring in a home, I make everything the same flooring, except for kitchens and bathrooms. So those would always get, the kitchens and bathrooms usually get the same tiles, and then all the other rooms get the same flooring. I just think that that seems more realistic to me, that you wouldn't constantly be changing the flooring within every single room. And so now we begin our first room. And this is the kitchen. I know it's dark. I'm just trying to lay out the counter space, but eventually I do add in the lights and we'll be able to see much better. And this is the Life and Death kitchen pack here. And I start off with the gold marble, but then I change it to the all black because I felt like maybe a matte kitchen feels more modern than a shiny metallic gold one. So I flipped it all to the matte black. And then you can also see a little bit there that I've changed the floor tiles from dark gray to big slabs of marble. I felt like that looked more modern as well. And then I also chose these red appliances from the Life and Death pack, but they weren't the cherry red that I wanted for the whole house. So I go back and I do change them to black. And then here I'm pulling out that cabinet because when I had the walls half down, it was just a blank spot next to the sink, and I felt like, well, why not just put a counter space there and have a little bit of extra room? And then I'm going through the wallpapers here, and I love that plain black, but I felt like the Realm of Magic wallpaper with the birds was a little bit more gothic. So I went with that. So to have like a really modern kitchen and then the gothic birds, I liked that mix. And now I'm working on the guest bathroom here, and I did decide to keep the same tiles that I originally went with. I didn't change it out to the marble slabs because I felt like the kitchen was going in one direction, the bathroom was going in another, and so I didn't mind that those didn't have matching tiles, but the all the other bathrooms do have the same tile. Moving on to the dining room. Now, if this dining room is too small for you, you can push it out one tile or more tiles, but at least one tile on the right side there into the kitchen if you would rather have a bigger dining space. But I liked this was cozy. I liked that rug fit in perfectly. So this is meant to be a really traditional Gothic dining room with the contrast of a big cherry red marble table and matching leather seats with a little bit of a gold accent that I'm putting in right now. And that's sort of the theme that I'm trying to go through with the whole house, where it's a little bit Gothic and a little bit modern, and it's kind of all meshed together. Also, back to that other bathroom really quickly, the reason why there's a giant tub in there and you won't see it in the other bathrooms is it's meant to be a little bit of a show off piece. It's meant to be a little bit showy, and that when people come over and visit, they use that bathroom and they see how fancy you are. So I just thought that was a little character development I wanted to throw in there. And now I'm moving on to the parlor. And in here, I'm just really very undecided about the rugs and not sure what color I want, if I want it plain or pattern or what size to do it in. But I definitely knew I wanted to use those sofas for sure. So I'm just trying to make everything work around those sofas. And that coffee table was almost perfect if it had been the same gold color that's on the sofas. That would have been really great. And now I'm trying to find just the right wallpaper that's not too much or too little. And I believe this is the wallpaper from the Bistro kit. I love the gold bar that goes around the room. And just adding in some more cherry red where I can find it, adding in some modern art to go alongside that sort of classic wallpaper as well. And a lot of times, if I find something random, I'll throw it in another room until I get back to it later, which is what I'm doing with all these rugs that I'm undecided about. And so it looks like now I'm headed into the foyer here and just trying to find like a center table, like a centerpiece, and trying to figure out wallpaper color. And I cut a lot of that out and I eventually just went with solid black and then this wireframe pendant because that felt really modern to me, especially with the little red metal insert piece. That is, of course, going to be the TV room or the family room. And so this was a lot of back and forth around here, a lot of indecision on what I wanted to go with. And I ended up with a different TV. I added windows. Here I am expanding the room, trying to fit everything into this family room. And because it's not really a main focus, it's just that that's where their TV is. So this is not necessarily where guests would go unless they were coming over to maybe watch a movie or something. And so that room is very simplistic. It's one of the only rooms with clutter, at least on the downstairs floor, it is the only room with clutter. Everything else is very, very sparse, and that's on purpose. I feel like that would be the style of this house, to really not have a lot of clutter and to be very minimalistic, very simplistic. But minimalistic in the sense of the quantity of clutter, not minimalistic in design, very maximalist in design. I love that clock and I always forget about it, so I was really happy that I remembered, so I made room for it. And now I'm trying to figure out the TV console or table that I want, and I decide to go with a little TV because I would rather have bookshelves on either side of the TV than have that gigantic curved TV. The coffee table was also a struggle. I went through several coffee tables as well as several TV consoles because I just really couldn't decide, because I'm trying to do a maximalist design and I'm trying to keep it gothic and yet modern. And so this room was really, really hard to do because it's also supposed to be the most casual room on this floor. And in these shelves that I'm currently filling up, I know that there are retail shelves, but I like that look for wealthy homes because in any tours that I've seen online, it always looks very precise in their pantries and shelving and whatnot. So I liked that look for this house as well. And right now I'm just trying to find all the cherry red clutter that I can find that looks good and makes sense for this build. I'm trying to fill up the living room with all that little bits of red pieces. And now you can see the tail end of my struggle with the coffee tables. I went through many coffee tables before making my final decision here. It was just really tough to go with that, choose which one was the right one there. And now I'm moving up into the upstairs here and working on Cassandra's bedroom. And my thought process for the design of both children's bedrooms was that Bella did initially design both of them, but she did respect their color choices, Cassandra getting purple, and then Alexandra getting a blue-green bedroom. And you can sort of see what might have been the original design, which was a very gothic, very modern, and then you can see kind of where the kids might have been adding their own stuff. Cassandra's a little bit older, so maybe she was going to a thrift store and getting some random pieces, and that's where I imagine the suitcases from, and possibly her end table and her desk chair. And whereas everything else was original to Bella Goth's design, and then she's a teen, so she's adding posters to her walls and she's adding little art sketches and doodles and things like that to her wall. And this goes along with my theme of having no clutter in the house except for the family room and the two children's bedrooms. And there is a little bit in Mortimer Goth's office, but the clutter is primarily in the kids' rooms. And you can see that in all the posters that I'm picking at and all the little art pieces and the beads and the lamps and all this clutter just to kind of emphasize their personalities. I see Cassandra as being very creative. I believe that's in one of the traits that she comes with. And even later on, I give her a violin and an artist sketch pad. So she has quite a few different ways to be creative in her room. And that's just sort of what I'm doing now, is making adjustments, trying to fit in as much clutter as possible, really overload this room. It's meant to be a teen's room who really likes art and creativity and is a little bit gothic herself. She's not far from her parents. She just likes a different color. She would rather have everything be purple. And I'm pretty sure her original bedroom was purple, and that's why I chose purple to be her color. So I'm just going in and adding makeup and hair supplies and, anything I can think of that would be in a teen's room, and really just filling that all up in there. And of course, a book case I add in there as well, and just trying to find the right ones, because then I saw the life and death one have these really nice purple ones, but I felt like they were too serious, so I did the striped ones. Now I'm moving on to Alexander's room, and I'm adding more windows to bring in light, because right now he only has the front window. And I'm also changing up the wallpaper because I did want him to have some crazy wallpaper, but then I thought the stripes went along better with the other things that I wanted to do in the room. Because again, I'm imagining that Bella decorated this room first, and then he came along and added his own personality with his posters and toys and games and things. So it starts off with a nice black and white room with black furniture and a blue bed and a blue ottoman, and it's sort of sticking to that theme. There's a little punches of green here and there. And then, as Alexander's growing up, he's adding his own things to the wall, and you'll see posters coming up and other different things that he's chosen to decorate his room with, like string lights and whatever. And so that's what this room is meant to show as well. There's the violin, um, and the drawing pad, and a plant. And a fire alarm. Oh, yeah, I'm just must be bouncing around at this point of all the stuff I forgot. And these baby pictures are again supposed to be going back to Bella having decorated the room and then the kid kind of growing into it, because I do feel like that's really common in families where the parents decorate the room and the child is growing up, but the room hasn't been refreshed yet. So I'm kind of imagining that his room hasn't really been refreshed. There's a baby light, little details like that. that show that it was originally decorated by the parents. I mean, who else would it be? And he does have some gothic stuff. He has a giant bat and he has a monster. And then there's like, I think there's an alien doll in here somewhere. So he does have some creepier stuff going on because he is in the Goth family. And now I'm just adding the lighting. Again, I'm imagining that he picked out those stars and they weren't original. And now we're moving on to the Goth's primary suite. And so I wanted to do, of course, a cherry red bathroom, and I'm expanding it because I feel like they should have a shower as well as a tub. And even though this red tub is not as fancy as the one downstairs, the I wanted a cherry red bathroom. And also the tub downstairs, like I said before, is meant to show off to guests. It's meant to be a little bit showy. And so I'm adding in the shower, and I chose that toilet because it looks like it comes with a bidet. And so this is meant to be wealthy people stuff. And now I'm trying to figure out a plant to put in here. And then also that hanging lamp I've used everywhere in this build because, like I said, with the floors, I like the floors all to be very similar. I also like the lighting to be very similar. I don't like it rapidly changing through every single room has a different thing. It's more like key points or key reasons why it would change. So, like in the foyer, you want something fancy. In the bedrooms, you probably just want table lamps, but I think every other room pretty much has that lamp. Um, but anyway, now we're moving into their actual bedroom, and now I'm just remembering that Life and Death comes with a different bed. So I took that bed instead of the previous one that I had in there, and now I'm working on the lighting and trying to figure that out and adding those curtains, which are pretty much all throughout the house. I love those curtains. I wish they came in like 50 more swatches. They're like just my favorite. I use them constantly, and I love the extra bar that we get so it can look like the curtains are being pulled across. And right now I'm just trying to figure out furniture. I didn't realize how small the room was. Plus I took away a row because I wanted to make the bathroom bigger. So I'm a little bit stuck here how I'm going to make this a more elegant primary bedroom when it feels like Cassandra's bedroom might be bigger at this point. So I'm just switching around, trying to figure out what I'm doing, trying to figure out how to make this work, adding back the globe lights because I think that they gave off a better glow than the lights that I had before, adding her vanity with a spot of red, trying to figure out the artwork. I really feel like that painting really pulled it together. The bunny rabbit, oh, that I picked because that looks like art that a mom would pick. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not a bad painting. It just looks like something that a mom would choose for a daughter and put it in her bedroom. That's the vibe that it gives me. Again, it's cute. It is cute, but that's the vibe I got. So I don't feel like Cassandra would have picked that out. That came with the design that her mother did for her initially. And then this is where I bump it out by a couple squares so that way I can get enough room here and it can feel more like a primary suite and feel special and large. And then I decide that I want to do a reading nook, so I'm just trying to balance everything out so that way I can make space for the reading nook that will be coming up soon. And so I'm just sort of sliding everything along here, figuring out where the true center is for all that stuff. And now I'm also adding more windows in here to make it a little bit more modern and just trying to balance everything out and add back in the curtains. And then I double up the wardrobe there in a moment as like his and her wardrobes and add a little mirror, swapping out the rugs now that we have more room and getting started on the reading nook and lining up the lamp and choosing a sofa. And just this is like the only part of the bedroom that really has that clutter feel because even in their bedroom I didn't want a ton of clutter, so there's just a little bit just to show that it's a little bit lived in, but I just feel like the parents would be, especially Bella, just not into clutter, except for the reading nook. So I'm just trying to fill that in and make it look cozy and comfortable, and like you could sit on the sofa and kind of look out the window there as you're reading. Love that little extra pillow. I know it clips when they sit down, but I still like putting them on the sofa. I think it looks fun. And just adding some final touches to this room here. You can see the skill builder easel being added in there. And that is the hallway bathroom that the two children would share. And this is very plain. I think I just did the bare minimum. Everything is black, no clutter. You get a rug and a mirror, and that's it. And now I'm moving on to Mortimer's home office. And this room is meant to be a reflection of the original home. And so it has like the vintage wallpaper and some vintage furniture. There's still a little bit of modern furniture in here, but it has the vintage rug and it has a lot of clutter. Again, this is a room that I put a little bit more clutter in than the rest of the spaces. So this is supposed to be, his spot where he can decorate it as he chooses. Because for some reason I see Mortimer as being more classic Gothic and Bella being more modern Gothic. Um, and so I sort of wanted to have his space reflect that. And then out here, this is just a sitting area, adding some pillows to glam it up a little bit. And eventually there'll be some more things in that hallway there, going through the different rugs, trying to find the right one. This hallway or the foyer landing was also really tough. Then I forgot I didn't finish that corner, so now I'm going back and trying to finish the corner here that I had left undone. And now we are moving on to the landscaping. And so for the landscaping, I was imagining that the actual gardening itself would be modern, but then there would be wild plants growing around the house that would be a little bit more on the Gothic side, I guess you could say. So their actual planned gardens will be very simple, very clean, and very modern. And then throughout the property, there'll be patches of wild plants growing throughout. And so right now I'm just lining up the fencing, I'm figuring out pathways and staircases and foundation and things like that. And I'm going through a lot of variations on the terrain paint. And so in the garden themselves, you can see I'm using the white gravel, and I use this because it reminds me of marble chips. And so I think a really modern way to do landscaping is those marble chip gardens that I've seen where they top the soil with that, so it's nice and crisp and white and bright and all that. And then in there, it would just go very simple, very green plants, which was a little bit hard to find throughout the game just because they're just not um, trimmed enough. Because the modern gardens that I had in my mind, it's almost like the little tiny shrubs are like perfect circles, and we don't exactly have that in the game, except for the ones that already come potted, and that wasn't the topiaries. That wasn't exactly what I wanted. I just wanted like a single one not in a pot. And now I'm adding the wild trees, and they all change. All of this changes. I think these two trees do stay, but I don't think anything else does. Like the red bushes, I eventually get rid of and try to find something a little bit different. The trees are going to be moving around probably every different angle that you see. A tree's probably going to be in a different spot until we get to the end here. And I don't really show all of it either, just because it gets really tedious. I'm changing my mind constantly. I'm really going all over the place. And then towards the end, you will see what I did, and what my final decisions were with all of this. But it was definitely hard and going back and forth. Now I'm jumping inside because I remembered the painting TV, and I was like, well, we got to have that because it has the modern art on it. And now I'm hopping to the back porch. I kind of needed a break from the landscaping, so I messed around with that for a little while. And now I'm just trying to figure out this back patio area using a lot of the Riviera set for this. And I think those are from Love Struck. They're wall decorations, I believe. And now I'm adding different plants to the patio, just trying to see what fits and what looks good, and trying to make this a really nice green space that feels very relaxing and fun to be in. And there are a few times where I hop back into the house and add a plant or two just because they were too small for the patio, but I really wanted to use them in the build somewhere. So I started adding them there. And I'm still finding more plants to just, try to fill up the space here. And then at some point, I also begin to change the shape of the patio because I decided that I wanted a seating area as well as a water fountain. So I'm dragging all of this out and adding more flooring just to be able to add a little bit more interest to this back area. There's a fountain that I saw that inspired this. Once I saw that, I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to work that in somewhere. And then the drink table as well, and get that in there. And then I just randomly saw that, and so I thought I would add it because I thought it was pretty. And then adding in the sofas to go into this new seating area that I added in. Still trying to keep it modern, um, and yet mixed in with the Gothic, and that's why there's like that darker water fountain there. And now I'm working on the lighting out here, and I decide to hit the 9 key and put that light up into the umbrella and take away all the other lighting so that it stays pretty dim back there, because that was sort of the vibe I was going for. And now you can see the final front landscaping. So you can see how there's patches of wild plants and wildflowers, and they are contrasting the very neatly manicured plants that are on the marble chipped areas. So here I'm adding two gravestones, and I don't really have a backstory here. I just wanted to add them because it's the Goth family home. I'm using the Life and Death pack, and I just wanted to make something that was a little bit rustic, a little bit overgrown. And so I thought that would be nice to just put that in this corner here. They are playable, so if you choose to download this house, you can assign them to Sims if you would like to do that. And now I'm just wrapping up the landscaping, adding some final touches here and there, and adding some terrain paint where needed, adding in those ferns, just these final finishing touches here as I wrap up this build. And this is a path that I'm adding, probably one of the last things that I add here. It's really great for any type of build, depending how you style it. It can work with any type of home. And so that's just what I'm doing here. I'm making adjustments to fit this path in. And then here's the very last thing that I make is the trash receptacle area. And so I'm just adding in gravel for a little bit of an added dimension to these stones, and then trying to match them in with brown to the ones that are next to them. And then adding a recycle bin from Debug, and then the actual playable trash can is added as well with a privacy fence to go along with it. And that's everything. Thanks so much for watching my speed build. I hope you enjoyed it. This build is in my gallery if you'd like to download it. And now I'll leave you with a tour of the completed build.